Hey again, welcome back to TeenMind. If you're new here, hi, I'm Allegra, I'm 16, and this is a space where I get to ask big questions about what it means to be a teen in today's world. In this podcast, we talk psychology, ethics, mental health, philosophy, basically all the things that keep our brains busy at 2 a.m. In the last episode, I talked about why we care what others think and how our need for connection sometimes controls us more than we realize. So this week's question kind of connects back to that one, because what's one of the biggest way we try to connect now? Yeah, it's technology. And we all know that teenagers love social media. They love texting, FaceTime, Snapchat streaks, etc. It's all supposed to keep us closer, technically. But sometimes it feels like the more we use it, the lonelier we get. So today's question is technology actually making us lonelier? So I would start by digging into that. Psychologically, ethically, and logically, and maybe figure out if being connected is really the same as feeling close. Okay, let's start with something we've all felt before. Like, I have a feeling that I've always been surrounded by notifications, messages, lots of group chats, comments, but somehow I always feel alone. Like, I feel like I could be scrolling through TikTok for hours, seeing hundreds of videos, faces, lives, but at the end of it all, there's just this weird emptiness. It's like, I've just wasted 2 hours of my day and I don't even feel better. Like, I'm talking about that kind of feeling, which I think is ironic, right? We've never been more connected. Like, thanks to technology, we're so more connected respect to, 50 years ago. But loneliness rates, especially amongst teenagers, are higher than ever. There's even extensive research showing that young people who spend the most time online often do feel less socially satisfied. Like, they feel lonely, which sounds a bit backwards. Like, isn't technology supposed to help us stay connected? Well, I feel like it does, but in a different way. Like, technology connects us instantly, but sometimes it does so superficially. Like, we get all the small, quick hits of interactions, like emojis, texts, but not the deeper stuff. It's like eating candy instead of sweets and things that don't actually fill us up, unlike an actual meal. Like, if you get a sugar rush, but you're still hungry. And I just feel like that this is the paradox we are talking about. Like, we're constantly communicating, but never connecting. So why does technology make us feel this way? So psychologically, it has to do with how we process relationships and how our brains respond to social cues. You see, in real life, when we talk to someone, we use more than just words. We use eye contact, we speak in a certain way, we use our body language. So these are all details that tell our brains, hey, this person gets me, he or she is understanding what I'm trying to say. But online, it's much more difficult, and most of that disappears. Like, a text or a comment doesn't have a facial expression or a tone, so our brains get less emotional feedback. That's why misunderstandings online happen so frequently, trust me, I know, and easily. Or why sometimes conversations online just sometimes feel emptier. And then there's something called social presence theory, which says that the closer a communication feels to real life, the more emotionally satisfying it is. So a face-to-face talk gives high social presence. A phone call a bit less, but it's not as low as texting or scrolling through stories. Like, it doesn't give us that emotional satisfaction that our brains need. And even though social media is designed to connect us, it's also designed to keep us hooked, to keep us scrolling, doom scrolling especially. So for example, every time we get a notification, our brain is like, oh my gosh, I need to open it. I need to see who texted me or what's going on. It releases dopamine, which was the chemical we talked about in the last episode. It's this feel-good chemical, and it's the same reward cycle that makes things addictive. So you keep checking your phone every single 10 minutes, 15 minutes, hoping for that little bit of validation. But you see, there is a problem about this. So dopamine, which is the chemical, gives a short high. It makes us feel good for a short period of time, but it's no long-term satisfaction. So you might get 100 likes and still feel lonely 10 minutes later. It's not actual real connection you can actually build a good relationship on with someone. And because we rely on it so much, we start to lose touch with what real connections actually feel like. Sometimes it's the awkward silences, the deep talks, and sitting with someone and just in silence, looking, I don't know. I feel like those moments should be cherished more, and I just should be experienced more. It's the best part of life. And I'm not saying that technology is evil. It's just that our brains haven't fully caught up with how fast it's changed and the way we connect. And so the emotional satisfaction we get from a simple text isn't enough for us, isn't enough for our brains. We can start looking at it also from an ethical side, because this question isn't just about how we use technology, but also why. I think there's this weird moral question underneath it. If you think about it deeply, if technology is making us lonelier, who is responsible for that? The people who use it, like us, or the people who make it? Think about maybe how social media is designed. Everything about it is meant to keep you scrolling. Infinite feeds, autoplay videos, streaks, notification, TikTok For You pages literally suck up so much time. It's built, the app, the social media itself is built to grab your attention and not let go. Ethically, that's kind of tricky because we as users think we're just choosing to stay online, but we're being subtly influenced. Apps compete for our attention, not our happiness. So even though we can put our phones down, we're being psychologically nudged not to. And then there's another ethical layer I think is really important to point out, how technology changes our empathy. So when we interact mostly through screens, it's easier to forget that there's a real person behind the video, a real person behind the profile. That's why online hate, bullying, or even cancel culture spreads so fast. It's easier to be cruel when you don't see the impacts directly. So ethically, we need to ask ourselves, how do we use technology in a way that still protects our humanity? How do we make sure it connects us instead of dividing us? Because it's not about deleting everything and living like it's the 1950s. It's about learning to be intentional. That's a good word. To choose when and how we connect. instead of just letting the algorithm decide for us. And of course, like everything, there's also a physiological side. Technology doesn't just change how we think. It actually changes how our bodies feel. When we use our phones too much, we're often sitting alone, staring at a screen for hours. So the lack of physical interaction, like hugs, laughter, or even just making eye contact, reduces a hormone called bonding hormone, and it's called oxytocin. So the more we replace real-life moments with virtual ones, the less our brains release the chemicals that make us feel connected. Plus, blue light, constant notifications, and overuse all increase anxiety and do reduce sleep, which is probably what like my mum says all the time, and I just pretend to not listen. But the thing is that what she says is true. And all these things just make the loneliness feel worse. And so here's something interesting too. Like, even when we're with people, our phones can get in the way. Like, it happened so many times to me that, like, sometimes I was just there with my friends and we were hanging out, and then we just end up looking at TikTok. Like, maybe we're just looking at TikTok all together. And like sometimes I just send TikToks to them instead of like turning my phone and actually showing them from my iPhone. But this is like, I feel like this is where phones get in the way. There's actual research showing that just having your phone on the table, even if you're not using it, makes conversations shallower and like less detailed, because part of your brain is always distracted and waiting for the next vibration or like ping that the phone is going to give off. So in a way, our bodies and brains are craving closeness. But our devices keep interrupting it. So now let's try to think through this from a logical point of view. Let's ask ourselves another question. Is technology actually making us lonelier, or is it just changing how loneliness looks? Because the truth is, technology has also helped us connect in amazing ways. People in long-distance relationships can stay close. Teenagers who feel isolated in real life can find online communities where they finally feel understood. And then, of course, there's a whole video calling your grandparents, collaborating with people across the world, or finding support for things you never feel comfortable saying out loud to a person. So maybe the question isn't, is technology making us lonelier, but how are we using it? Technology itself isn't good or bad, it's neutral. It becomes meaningful depending on how we use it. It can isolate us if we use it to avoid real interactions, or it can bring us closer if we use it to deepen real relationships. So logically, it's not the phone or the app or just, the Wi-Fi signal, but it's whether we let it replace real connections instead of supporting it. So I'm just going to do a little personal reflection, because I feel like I felt both sides of this. Like, there are days when my phone makes me feel closer to people, especially when I'm FaceTiming my grandparents, which I'm very attached to, or like FaceTiming with my long-distance best friend. And because, fun fact about me, I am born and raised in London, but I am currently living in Italy. And so I've had this best friend who's been my best friend for around 8 to 9 years. And sometimes FaceTiming her and just talking about random situations about like my daily life, texting, sending memes, like random things that makes me feel closer to her can make my day so much better. But I feel like there are also days which I experienced which are like the complete opposite. Like when I'm scrolling, like sometimes, especially on weekends, I find myself like on my bed, completely like unaware about anything happening next to me. And I just start scrolling endlessly on TikTok, and each video does give me like a high. Like, to be honest, I giggle so much when I watch TikTok because like my For You page is really funny. So it does make me feel happy. But when I turn the app off, when I turn my phone off, and I just see everyone else living their life, like their best lives, and then suddenly, I don't know, my own just feels a bit boring. Or when I'm in a group chat but still feel a bit left out because the conversation just doesn't feel real. I've noticed that like the more I depend on my phone for connection, the more anxious I get when it gets quiet. Like if nobody's texting me back, my brain like automatically says, oh wait, maybe the thing I said doesn't really like apply to what we're talking about right now, or maybe like nobody cares about what I'm talking about right now. Which I know like it sounds a bit ridiculous, but I'm sure it happened to the most of us. And when it happens, you just feel like the connection isn't there anymore, and so you try to do everything to like make it go back to normal. And so lately I've been trying to make it more intentional. So when I like want to hang out with someone, I try always to keep my phone away. And if I'm scrolling too much, I just like, because I do have these moments of consciousness, I just check in with myself, and I'm like, wait, hold on. Is like, how many hours have I been there? Like, am I doing this to connect or just to feel silence? And weirdly, the more I unplug, the less lonely I feel, because I realize that the real connection is definitely like the real connection, like the kind that actually lasts, is definitely doesn't come from notifications. I think it comes from being present and there, and just being there for a person. So, well, this is just all I wanted to say. To wrap it up, technology can bring us together, but only if we remember to stay human while using it. Like, maybe the goal isn't to disconnect completely, but to reconnect intentionally. Like, to use technology as a bridge and not a replacement for real life. Because if you think about it, at the end of the day, no matter how many followers, likes, or messages you have, what we all really want is to feel seen, heard, and understood. And that's something no algorithm, I think, can give you. So thanks so much for listening to my second episode. I'm still working on all of the things to do for this podcast I made. And if this made you think maybe to take a minute after this just to put your phone down and check in with yourself, like, who do I actually feel close to right now? I think that would be awesome. So anyways, next week we'll tackle another big question, which is, I feel like is so popular amongst my generation right now, which is, why are we so afraid of failure? Spoiler, I think it's not just about grades. I think it's about identity. And, well, yeah, I'm Allegra, and this has been Teen Mind. Remember, technology can connect us, but real connection starts with you. Bye!